Okay, well, we'll get started. So, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for today's VetNet Upskilling, Staying Competitive in Fast-Growing Industries. I'm Linda Nellis. I'm the Alumni Service and Engagement Coordinator at the Daniello Institute for Veterans and Military Families. And this session explores the fastest growing sectors while highlighting the critical skills needed to succeed in these fields. You're going to hear from Adam Pritchard, the IVMF's research associate, regarding the state of the job market. Following Adam, you'll hear from Kenneth Mays, IVMF Employer Relationship Navigator, and Ken will focus on the skills needed to stay competitive in the current workplace and emerging industries. So we will address questions at the end of the presentation, but feel free to post your questions in chat throughout. The session will also be recorded and sent out to everybody later this afternoon. So at this time, I will go ahead and hand it over to you, Adam.
Hi there. How are you? Thank you for joining us. We are happy to be here with you. My name is Adam Pritchard. I'm a research associate here with IVMF, and I work on some of our entrepreneurship and economic opportunity portfolio. So with that, I'd like to share with you some of the insights that we have. Let me just get this going here. All right. All right, here we go. Are we working now? Slides look good? Fantastic. All right, so today I want to talk to you about upskilling, staying competitive in fast-growing industries. So let's jump right into talking about what today's industries look like. So employment, luckily for you, that this is at the end of the year, and so we have some fresh off the presses insights from Department of Labor here I'm going to share with you. But I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the work we've done here at IVMF that sets up this conversation. We've been looking into skills-based hiring on the research side for about 2 years now, and here are a couple of our publications, and we'll share with you some of these later for some additional insights. But we started back in November. We did some interviews with some people in the skills-based hiring space that work with veterans, that work with various state, national workforce programs, and sort of set up a case for, well, how can we integrate veterans better into the growing skills-based architecture? And then we put out these two papers, one making the case for hiring veterans when you're looking for skills-based employment. And then the second is sort of an adaptation of the first from the point of view of the veteran going, how can veterans benefit from employers engaging in skills-based hiring? So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what that research shows, along with some of the latest employment data. So I'll start out with the employment data because everybody loves data. At least I hope you love data. This from the Department of Labor just came out probably beginning of the month. These are the average employment numbers for 2025. These are the top 5 occupational areas, so occupational categories from the federal labor tracking. These are the top 5 for post 9/11 veterans. So I isolated just post 9/11 veterans, which is sort of the audience that we serve with most of our programs. So we narrowed it down here. And I just want to show you just some rough overview, sort of where veterans are working and which fields, which occupations employ a lot of veterans. And these, of course, cover a lot of different types of jobs within professions. It's a lot of different things, but just get you a sense of where veterans are and how they differ from the non-veteran population. You see veterans are concentrated in areas of management, business, and finance, less likely to be in service industries, more likely to be in production, transportation, materials, natural resources. So when it comes to doing tangible things, and then when it comes to businesses, less likely to be in the professional fields, and those are professional fields that usually require a lot of certification, experience, things like that. You end up with people like lawyers, educators, things like that. And those are fields that end up being kind of a lifelong career in that. And so less likely to have veterans who are coming from a career in service into something like that, unless, of course, that's what they did while they were in the service. So you can kind of get a sense of where veterans are from this and where there are large numbers of veterans. So they're about, for context on this, there's about 4.2 million post 9/11 veterans. And so you're looking at a good chunk of them here. This is also important data from the Department of Labor. They also put out their projections for the next 10 years. And here are the fields that they expect to be the fastest growing by percentage. Percentage change is sometimes a little bit misleading because it shows, something very small changes a very high percentage when it grows. Something very large changes a very low percentage when it grows. I'll point out a couple of these. The top one is healthcare. And healthcare percentage growth, 8% growth in healthcare, which is already one of the hugest employers in the country, is a lot of growth in healthcare. So that's actually legitimately a very high growing field. The ones with the little arrows next to them are fields where veterans tend to be more highly employed than in other sectors. And so I've flagged those to show you that a lot of the top, some of those that are down at the bottom, manufacturing, government, retail trade are places that have a lot of veteran employees. Those are not expected to grow much over the next 10 years. But those fields in which growth is expected, veterans are already pretty well represented in some of those top areas. And I've highlighted those on the side of your screen there: professional services, construction, utilities, and wholesale trade. Also want to point out that some of the fastest growing occupations in the country are going to be things like they're going to be combinations of uh, technical and trade type skills. So, for example, one of the fastest growing jobs is going to be wind and solar installers, right? 49% for wind installers, 42% for solar installers. So these are fields that require high amounts of technical and trade skills. Those are going to be the jobs that are going to be the fastest growing. We're going to hire the most people doing that, or most growth in doing that. I'll give you a little bit of an example there. So like renewable energies, they expect to be about 20,000 new jobs created there. That's 50% growth in those jobs. Healthcare is only going to grow by 8%, but that'll add 2.5 million jobs. And so that's the difference between a field that's big and a field that's small. So there's going to be a lot of growth, but it's going to be a smaller number of occupations. But smaller number of occupations usually means that it's a highly technical job. It's going to pay better when fewer people qualify for it. It's going to be more in demand when there are fewer people to do it. So those are areas to keep an eye on. So I kind of highlighted energy utilities with AI and everything coming on board. Most of construction, there was a article the other day that said that a lot of construction is going to be focused on data centers rather than other types of commercial construction. So being in utilities, being in energy, being able to handle technology, and then of course, healthcare are going to be large growing fields. Just for context, 5 of the 15 fastest growing single occupations are in computer and data science. So when we look at how do you get hired in these areas and how do you make progress, one of the things we looked at was skills-based hiring. And skills-based hiring is something that more and more employers are doing. And the reason is because the old model is you get a degree and that degree qualifies you for a job. You get experience in that job and you end up getting promoted. And of course, you do trainings along the way if you need new skills. The new model of work is a lot different. The new model of work is saying, well, we don't really know what those jobs are. Those jobs are changing, they're going away. So the new model is look at what skills you have and see what role fits those skills. You continue to upskill, you take on new responsibilities. As you take on new responsibilities, your job might be the same and it might change into something else. You might move into a job that never existed before. And so rather than training to do a specific type of task where somebody already knows how to do it and trains you to do it, today we focus more on professional development. That's adding skills to your skill set so that you can do the thing that you do, something new, and move forward. So veterans are very well positioned to operate in a skills environment because I think for a lot of people who served, what you did in the service wasn't necessarily your choice, your interest. They kind of said, you need to learn how to do this and get it done, and then learn how to do something else. And so veterans are capable of learning in a self-motivated way, have a lot of experience with technical training, being able to be taught a new task, break it down into steps and get it done. So, and just experience with more fluid roles, working with teams, and building long-term skills, problem solving within something. They train you to do it this way. It doesn't work that way. You figure out how to do it on the fly. And so veterans have a lot of the key skills that employers are looking for today. In fact, there's a documented veteran advantage in a number of areas that employers cite as these are the skills we're looking for. When you ask employers, what do you want? This was from a couple years ago from the World Economic Forum, Future of Jobs, and they interviewed global employers. What do you want? What skills do you want employees to have? Things like critical thinking, analytical thinking, technological literacy, resilience, flexibility, agility, systemic thinking, self-motivation and self-awareness, leadership and social influence, dependability and attention to detail are all skills that we have lots of existing research on that shows that veterans have advantages over civilian populations in those specific areas. So these are the kinds of skills that employers are looking for. And so we really wanted to highlight for employers, hey, veterans are the people you want that can do this. And so some of the other things in the research that we did, focus in on, well, how do we then take the veterans that have these skills and connect them to those programs? And this is some of the work that we do at IVMF, right? We work, our Onward to Opportunity program is a skill bridge program. There are many state and federal initiatives that try to connect employers with job seekers. A lot of the challenges for that is connecting the skills that you have in a way that an employer can actually understand. And so it's very hard sometimes to bridge that gap and connect. How do I learn to communicate my skills? And how do I validate those skills, prove to others that those skills are there? And that's where organizations like IVMF come in with credentialing that allows you to add to your skills and then demonstrate those skills in a way that an employer goes, okay, I understand what skills you have and understand what that's useful for. And so, so you can read a little bit more on some of our materials on that. But we want to highlight a couple of things. There are ways to connect with military jobs if you want to start, if you're at a point where you're starting out and going, what can I do with the skills that I already have from the military? What do I need to add? What would happen if I add this or that skill? You can check out some of these resources like My Next Move, which will help you search for potential career fields based on your military operational classifications. And then the National Student Clearinghouse is a place where you can aggregate credentials and find out what kinds of credentials you can add to give employers confidence that you know what you say you know. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to somebody who is a lot more of an expert than I am at connecting your specific skills to your resume, and that is my colleague, Kenneth Mays. Ken?
Hey, thanks a lot, Adam. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending today's session. I am Ken Mays, the employer navigator and workforce strategist. I focus on connecting employers with high caliber military affiliated talent, which is you, of course. I also help translate military experience into corporate competencies and helps transitioning service members prepare themselves for the next careers that they have. Adam did an excellent job of spotlighting some of the scientific approaches to employment. He gave you the data. Data is everything because strategic decisions are determined based on data. Now that we understand where the opportunities are, let's discuss how you can prepare yourself to enter some of these emerging industries that Adam spotlighted. But I want to give you a tip first off, right? If you are a job seeker trying to get into an emerging career field, here is a tip. Limit applying to roles on job boards. And here's the reason why. 95% of job seekers compete for only 15 to 20% of available jobs that are on the job boards. According to management consultants research, it indicates that up to 70% of job openings are never even publicly advertised. How about that? You don't even see 70% of what's available out there. The other 70 to 80% never even get posted. A California Institute of Applied Technology article stated that over 75% of online applications never even reach a human. How about that? They die in automated systems before anyone gets an opportunity to read them. But here is what actually works, and this is what the IVMF specializes in: direct outreach and networking. That yields a success rate of about 80%. That's about 8 times better than clicking apply on your favorite job board. The military prepared us. I'm a veteran, 26 years, United States Army. The military has prepared us to adapt. So guess what? This is what you have to do. You have to adapt. The job market demands it. Companies are hiring through relationships. As Adam stated, companies are hiring based on skills, not resumes. If you're still using the same approach you used on your transition assistance, you are already behind. So today, what I want to do is I want to spotlight 4 different strategies, right? I want to discuss the 4 strategies that actually work. Accessing the hidden job market through strategic networking, of course, translating your experience, which Adam also spotlighted, and then We want to secure the certifications that you need. And then, most importantly, leverage the O2O program to assist you. So let's start with the number one, and we'll stay on this slide right here, Adam, right? Emerging industries face right now there's a massive talent shortage, especially in cybersecurity. Did you know that there's about 700,000 unfilled positions in cybersecurity? This is one of the key areas where opportunity may present itself. Healthcare, there are about 2.6 million workers down, and they hope to achieve that rate by 2033. Renewable energy, which is something that Adam also spoke about, is growing 61% faster than the overall economy. You bring problem solving, you bring adaptability, and they actually need it. But here is how you connect. If you see on the slide, the first thing you got to do is you got to do your homework. You got to research the pain points of the industry. Or as we say in the HR world, you got to conduct your due diligence, right? Cybersecurity, they need threat analysts for zero trust architecture implementation. Renewable energy, they need project managers. That's why project manager has been the number one certification in the O2O program since its inception. Healthcare, technology, they need people who are used to doing audits, who are used to enforcing compliance, not nurses, or they need nurses too, but on the technical side, they need people to enforce these compliance, and you'll never guess why. The reason they need this is because they have seen an explosion of telehealth. And with telehealth, there's a high risk of information being compromised. And then, of course, they have to apply with the HIPAA. So the telehealth expansion has created this need for technological experts in the healthcare industry. The second part of that is you got to speak the language of the employer. You got to be able to analyze the job description, right? And you already have a cheat sheet. The cheat sheet is the job description. It tells you the language that the employer wants to see. Don't ignore it, right? I don't care what ChatGPT says. Pay attention to the job description because that is where all the secrets lie. Here's a cheat code. Use the language that is used in the job description. Drop the military jargon. I know it's difficult. I've been retired almost 13 years and I still drop an acronym every now and then. But you got to drop the military jargon, right? If you manage logistics in the military, you can say you manage supply chain. If you led teams doing complex operations, you can say I'm a change management expert, right? The third thing, you got to target growing companies. And when I say growing companies, I mean some nonprofits, some small businesses, not necessarily Fortune 500s when you first get out the gate. Startups and mid-sized firms and emerging sectors, they kind of move faster. Right? And the reason they move faster is because they value skills over pedigree. They are looking for the skills that you need that is required to accomplish the mission. They need people who can adapt quickly and solve problems under constraints. You can increase your business acumen, which we'll talk about business acumen a little bit later on, and any roles within a smaller company, because there is an extensive amount of cross-portfolio collaboration, which ultimately improves your business acumen, which is a huge part. Now, your military background, it demonstrates both of these things, right? Number four, network strategically. I have a network. I have a LinkedIn account, and I'm talking about LinkedIn because this is probably one of the quickest ways for you to touch bases with individuals that could be a value add to your work or what you are trying to accomplish. But you got to network strategically. I mean, it's not necessary to accept every invite on LinkedIn, right? Take a look at their profile. Is there anything that they're doing that's going to be beneficial, or are they asking for assistance? Be very strategic. You got to research what you're going to do. Research shows that 70 to 80% of jobs are filled through networking. We already talked about that. And referrals rather than public postings are the way that people are finding jobs. LinkedIn is your primary tool to identify people, but also identify organizations that align with your goals, right? You can also find those who have military affiliation so that when you reach out to them, you have a common denominator between the two of you. I know the slides went back a little bit, but okay. Here's what you can do. You can set job alerts on your LinkedIn profile. You can target companies. You can put the open to work logo on your LinkedIn profile. Just make sure you hide it so that only recruiters can see it. Because if you're currently employed, that can create some problems for you. All right. You can join special industry or special interest groups, such as project managers on LinkedIn, human resource professionals on LinkedIn. They have great resources. You can request informational interviews. You can attend industry events quarterly or monthly. I'm a part of the human resource chapter within my region. I attend the meetings on a monthly basis. I'm part of the leadership team there. It helps me to develop my business acumen in HR, but it also gives me an opportunity to connect with individuals. You can demonstrate your current knowledge by taking free courses such as LinkedIn Learning, Coursera, Udemy. There are so many courses out there that you can take to just improve what you actually do. Now, here's another tip. This is becoming increasingly popular. Create a portfolio of the work that you've done, or some of the work that you've done. If it's necessary, you could share it with maybe a potential employer, but I will give you another tip as well. And this is, consider copywriting your intellectual property for added protection because some people may want to see your work just so that they can go and implement it on their own. When it comes to resume writing, when it comes to resume, like your resume won't work in the civilian world if you don't make some changes to it. Not everyone knows what a S3 NCO is or S3 officer is. So you need to use a terminology that aligns with what the industry uses and also something that's going to get through the applicant tracking system. Follow this approach. You got to start with results, not duties. If you look on the slide, you'll see facts tell, stories sell. You have to be able to tell a story. You got to develop an emotional connection with individuals so that they can see things in your perspective, right? Start with results, not duties. You can say that I manage 12-person teams, which means nothing. So what? You manage 12 people. That doesn't say much about you except for you was maybe managing 12 people. But if you put, I led a team that reduced processing time by 30%, saving $200,000 annually. Now that will catch the attention of the job interviewer or the hiring manager because it's quantifiable, it's measurable, it's objective, all right? It's giving people an idea into who you are and what you have accomplished. So always remember that numbers matter, percentages matter, and dollar amounts definitely matter. Translate every military term. Squad leader becomes a supervisor. Operations officer becomes an operations manager. You got to focus on your transferable skills. Transferable skills are some of the things that my colleague spoke about earlier. Critical thinking, project management, budget oversight, training and development, process improvement, quality control, risk assessment. These are terms and skills that are agnostic to every industry that you could think of. On the next slide, I'd like to hit a couple of the certifications and the trainings that are being offered as well. Certifications validate your skills, right? It actually shows that you have met a standard of excellence from an incredible organization. And it just shows that you have met the standard when it comes down to being certified or being identified as a subject matter expert in there. Well, let's break that down a bit. Every job interview is designed to identify your fit for the position. Remember the resume that we just spoke about? It definitely is designed to see if you're a fit for the role. But when you get to the interview, the resume is designed to show that you can do the work. But when you get to the interview, they are evaluating your ability to be a good fit for the role. And there's a couple areas they have to understand that you're being evaluated in. One is, you're being evaluated on a rubric or a standard that will focus on your intellectual quotient, your IQ, your emotional quotient, your EQ. This is why you get questions about how did you feel when this happened or when that happened? Your social quotient. How do you get do you get along well with other people? What did you do when a person you had a confrontation with, said something out of character? How did you deal with that? Those behavior-based questions. And then the resiliency quotient. They want to know, can you bounce back when things don't go well? Tell me about a time when a project was not meeting the deadline? How did you adjust? How did you make adjustments so that you can achieve the outcome? Your IQ, which we talked about first, is a combination of a couple things. You got your formal education, you have your experience, you have your credentials or certifications, right, which is the validation, but then you also have business acumen, which is understanding how a particular organization leverages your skill sets. These are all the things that make up who you are. Certifications provide a common language. They open the doors, and their return on investment is almost immediate. You don't have to go to school for 4 years or 6 years to get a degree, or maybe to get that master's or get a JD. You get a certification, you get some hands-on experience. Now you're in a position where you can make things happen. Some of the top certifications of technology, cybersecurity, I'm not going to hit all of them, but you got CompTIA Security Plus, and I think that one is very important because it's a gateway into the government work environment, but also Security Plus is a gateway into the cybersecurity industry. As I mentioned earlier, the most popular cert that we offer is PMP. It has been for the last 9 years that I've been with the IVMF. PMP is the one of the number one certifications out there. But there's Scrum Master, there's Agile Certified Practitioner. These are all project management certifications that can help you out. Healthcare has a number of certifications, but a lot of the IT certification and business certifications can easily merge into the healthcare industry as well. And then with logistics and supply chain management, you got the certified supply chain professional, and you have a certified in production and inventory management and some transportation certifications as well. On the data side, Google offers an excellent data analytics certification, Tableau, Power BI, Microsoft. There's so many ones out there. O2O, we fund those certifications that fall within our catalog, such as some from Google, Microsoft, Cisco, or CompTIA, and then even artificial intelligence essential certifications as well. Lastly, on the last slide, I want to talk about the O2O program and how we support career transitions. So the O2O program provides training certifications. We give vouchers for eligible candidates. Our approach is proven. The third-party research from Penn State Clearinghouse for military family readiness validated the O2O program. And what came out of that evaluation was that the O2O program results in members who are E6 and below, starting out $13,000 higher starting salaries, just by completing the program. We fund the industry certifications. We connect you directly to hiring employers. We track the outcomes to ensure that our programs are working as they are supposed to work. Over the last 11 years, we supported over 100,000 participants, and our outcomes speak for themselves. Participants consistently, and I say consistently, achieve employment or continued education within 6 months of completion from this program. And I can tell you from a firsthand experience, I graduated from the O2O program in 2014 after I retired from the Army in 2013. So I'm not just telling you this because it's a soundbite. I'm telling you this because I've experienced it. Now you have the complete framework. Network strategically to access the hidden job market, which is accountable for about 70 to 80% of opportunities. Translate your military experience into civilian language that passes the applicant tracking system. Leverage O2O support or the program to validate the salary increases from 7 to 13K, right? And then also find out which certification you need for you to advance in the career field. Don't just take a certification to be taking a certification. Make sure you take a certification that aligns with where you want to land as opposed to where you came from. In the words of Marshall Goldsmith, he wrote a book, and if you hadn't read it, I encourage you to do so. And the name of the book is What Got You Here Won't Get You There. You got to make some changes. You got to make some adjustments. And I couldn't think of a better time to start. So at this time, I'd like to take it back to the owner of this presentation. But before that, we have two QR codes here. So if you have never enrolled in the O2O program or any IVMF program, the QR code on the left Feel free to scan that to gain access to the program. If you are a graduate of any IVMF program, so that's O2O, that's America Serves, that's entrepreneurship programs, then the alumni services code is on the bottom right. You can scan that code to gain additional access to professional development tools and resources that we have available to those that we serve. So that is my time, and back to you, Linda. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, both of you. That was amazing, amazing. So we do have a few submitted questions that I'll go through, and Adam or Ken, either of you feel free to chime in. The first one is, what advice is available for senior leadership roles?
Yeah, I'll start that one off. Senior leadership roles. One of the best ways to get into a senior leadership role is you need to find someone who's in a senior leadership role. Remember, I talked about LinkedIn? You need to find out, you got to do your research, right? Is there a particular company that you're looking to work for? And if you identify as let's company XYZ, you go on LinkedIn, you find company XYZ, you do a people Boolean search, and then you can identify all the senior leaders that have a profile at that particular company. And then you try to get an informational interview. Don't be too aggressive, all right? Don't ask for, hey, I see you're an alpha, I'm an alpha. I need you to give me the hookup. No, you got to establish some type of rapport, right? Just touch bases. Say, hey, can you give me maybe 10 minutes to talk about what you do? I'm really interested in what you do, and I'd like to learn more about what you do. That is one of the easiest ways to transition. You got to have someone to show you the lay of the land. All right. You can read all the books in the world, all the articles. You can go to all the conferences you want to, but at some point in time, there's three important people you got to have within your network. And those three people are a coach, a mentor, and a sponsor. And if you never heard that phrase before, I can go through it real quickly. A coach brings the best out of you. It doesn't have to be a coach that aligns with what you want to do, but they have the ability to bring the best out of you. A mentor shows you the lay of the road, just like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. They show you the yellow brick road because they've traveled the yellow brick road. And then the sponsor is someone who has the power to advocate for you, to say, this is why you deserve an opportunity. But it all starts with your initial contact with people who are doing the work that you are trying to do.
Ken, can I add to that the way a lot of companies set out to make a search for a senior leadership role is often to engage with a recruitment firm, and those recruitment firms rely on relationships as well, and so they will find people in peer roles and ask them who they know, and if you don't know those people who are in similar roles, they're not going to think of you when they go out and do an executive search. So those networking positions are sometimes important for you to be approached for a senior leadership role as well as, to seek one.
Yeah, and just to add one more thing to that, I missed this one. There's something out there that's called non-traditional pathways to employment, right? NTPEs, apprenticeships, you know, fellowship programs. They're going all the time. J&J has them, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and a lot of those are specifically designed for senior leadership. They have a certain criteria that you have to meet. And a lot of time it's an immersion program, maybe 1 or 2 years, and sometimes even longer. That could be another way to get in as well. So, but it's all relationship based.
Thank you both. We do have one that just came through the chat from Natasha. It is, my question as a trained mental health therapist interested in cyber threat assessment. It is, what is the best, most low cost way to start? I have a diverse background to include director of military programs to direct practice, but would like to pivot. If either of you want to take that.
Yeah, I'll start and then Adam can add on. So you're a mental health professional and you have aspirations of transitioning into cybersecurity. Well, again, the NTPEs, the non-traditional pathways to employment. There are boot camps out there that you can take. A lot of companies have resources, fellowship programs to get in there. If you're currently employed, that could be a route to go through. If you just go to college and you get your credentials and you graduate with the expectation of being able to get in, then you got to do a little bit more than that. You got to build some relationships, of course, as I mentioned earlier, but look for some of the learn to earn programs that are out there, like the fellowships. I think that's a good way to get in. And then also, I will say, do not miss an opportunity because maybe they offer you a role that's not necessarily in cybersecurity, but it's a way to get into the company because it's a lot easier to advance when you're in the company as opposed to when you're not in the company. So sometimes you just got to get into the organization, find a mentor. They may have some internal development programs that's available, but you got to get in first. Adam?
Yeah, and I'll reflect back on something you said earlier, Ken, and that's to demonstrate your competence at executing projects. One of the things you have to do in order to pivot career fields is because you're not going to have the experience within that field, you're not going to have the background in that field, you have a background in something else. And the thing employers look at when you have a background in something else is, does this person even know how to do this? And you don't want them to ask that question when they look at your resume. You want them to look at your resume and see this person has a pathway of successfully developing and completing projects in ideally new and different areas. And therefore, they are probably a skilled person who can bring that type of work ethic, that type of dedication, that type of learning into a new area. So, what you want to do is make sure that you demonstrate not experience in doing one thing, but rather competence in achieving projects, achieving tasks, developing new skills for yourself, and successfully completing those projects. So demonstrate your success, and then you'll have a better chance of moving and pivoting into a new field where they go, okay, we're getting an excellent person. We may expect that they take 6 months to get up and running, but once they do, we'll have an excellent person in this field.
Yeah,
Great.
and just a caveat on that, because you made a great point there, right? Remember, I talked about like HR chapters, project management chapters, Toastmasters. There are some cybersecurity chapters out there.
Yeah.
You can go out and you can join one of those chapters and participate in a few projects just to enhance your level of experience. But then you have to capture that in some type of portfolio, right? This is what I've done. Remember, stories sell, right?
Mhm.
Facts tell, stories sell. Can you show what you did? Have someone go into your LinkedIn profile and say, yeah, Adam is great. He did this, 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 and this. It's in your LinkedIn profile. When recruiters scan, they'll see it. But it's about, sometimes you got to do the volunteer work in order to get the experience. So great point, Adam.
Great, thanks. So we just have a couple more. How do I draw attention to a certain skill on my resume, like PMP for a required PMP job?
Well, I'll go ahead and start, Ken, and I'll let you give a little addendum to it. But one of the most important things on resumes, as someone who's been involved in hiring my entire career, is that when you have too much on your resume that is irrelevant to the job you're applying for, people aren't going to see what's relevant. So if you want somebody to see it, put it front and center. And that means really looking at the job ad, really looking at the company or the position that you're looking at to make sure that, as Ken said earlier, use the language from the job ad, use the language from the company, demonstrate that you've done things, make sure that what you say you can do connects up with their strategic plan, with their mission statement, with their values. And it takes a little bit of work because that means your resume is different for every job you apply for. And that takes a lot of time. And I've been there. I'm sure you've been there too, Ken. But that's really the key is to make sure you center what's there. And I know, especially people who have a lot of accomplishments. I was an academic. I was a criminology professor for 15 years before I did this job. I have a 40-page resume called a curriculum vitae that a lot of faculty have. But that's not going to get me a job. And I have to distill that down into a single page and go, here's why you want to hire me for this particular role.
You make a great point, Adam, when you talk about the level of experience, because I've been retired from the military for almost 13 years now. So to be honest, my military career essentially has fallen off my resume. So that 26 years that I served is really, if we're going by the 10-year guideline, right? Which is don't put more than 10 years of experience on your resume, which some people say. All right. My military career will have fallen off. So one of the things that I would recommend, if you have a particular skill set, and this is ideal for military veterans or people who have years of experience, specifically more than 10 years of experience, you have to use the proper resume format, right? The chronological resume may not be working for you when you have so much experience. The other type of resume is the functional resume. That might work for you, but not as good as the targeted resume. If you are trying to spotlight your PMP skills and experience, I would recommend that you use the targeted resume. Number one, it's going to take the reader away from the years of experience. You can spotlight the years of experience in a different way, but it's going to focus more on the skill sets and everything that you place. It needs to align with the language that the employer is using from the JD, but then also it needs to be quantifiable and it needs to be evaluated. I mean, it's got to be able to be evaluated, quantitative and qualitative. Remember, I talked about the percentages, they matter. The numbers, they matter. Dollars and cents, it matters, right? That is what's going to draw people's attention because it shows, okay, here's the evidence. Here is the evidence that this person can do the work.
Great advice from both of you. Okay, so here's another one. Is it smarter to pivot or focus on a niche in a saturated competitive market?
Well, that's an interesting question because um, there's an inherent risk to either one of those, right? There's a risk to staying in a saturated market. If you have a lot of experience, if you have a lot of skills, if you stand out in that market, it's good to be one of the better people in a competitive market because they're going to have higher salaries and things like that if you can do the job. Um, a pivot will open up new opportunities, but some things come and go. Some things are really hot today and not very hot tomorrow. I'll give you a recent example. During the pandemic, a lot of tech people left Silicon Valley. They moved out to Nebraska, and they moved into a small town and cut their cost of living with their, $300,000 salary from San Francisco. And once the pandemic kind of played out a little further, those companies realized, well, we don't need to be paying somebody $300,000 in a place that has a cost of living of 70, and they cut the salaries of those folks that moved out there. And so if they had stayed in San Francisco, they'd still be, well paid. So I think there's obviously a risk either way. And so what I would recommend, rather than specifically thinking of that as the question, like Ken said, what got you here will not get you there. And I think that's the key is to thinking about what is your long-term plan. Your goal is not to get this job. Your goal is to stay competitive on a job market. And that means constantly adding skills, constantly adding new ideas. And that means something a little bit different than pivoting because pivot suggests that I just retool myself, go get a different job. The reality is in this job, I'm constantly adding skills. While I have this job, I am doing new things, right? I'm not just doing, for example, I'm a statistician, I do research, but I'm learning AI, right? Now I have a totally different skill set. I could take a completely different job doing AI work that's unrelated to any of the work that I've done before because I'm building this skill set within the role that I currently have. And so you should constantly be stacking and sort of what is that? Sort of stair stepping your skill sets so that you are never in a position where you have to completely start over and retool and pivot. So I would argue to try to avoid doing that. Don't stay stagnant in one place where you only have one skill and don't necessarily count on adding a second skill and making that the answer. But I would say constantly stair stepping those skills so that in the current role you have, you may do extra things, but you're also aiming yourself towards extra opportunities.
Couldn't have put it better myself, my friend. I tell you, the term that came to phrase is a knowledge economy. We're in what's known as a knowledge economy right now. And your ability to navigate employment opportunities is going to be based off your skills. So I agree with you 100%. You got to continue to stack. AI, I'm all in it. I'm all over it because it makes me better at my job. Plus, it's the way of the future, right? What used to be the basic skills like Microsoft Outlook, Teams, well, no, Microsoft Outlook, Excel, PowerPoint, Remember those days? That was the baseline. Every resume had Microsoft Office on it. If I see a resume with Microsoft Office on it now, you know what that tells me? That person is behind, right? Because 365 is the word on the street right now, which says you can do share file, you can do OneDrive, Microsoft Teams, right? And then AI, Copilot, right, is all a part of 365 as well. So the basic skill sets have changed. So when it comes down to pivoting, you have to ask yourself, am I pivoting for a particular role? Am I pivoting for an employer? Am I pivoting for a better opportunity? Or maybe I can add on to the skills that I had, just like Adam just stated, and be competitive, maybe even in the same company. Real quick story, I'll tell you. I had an insurance company on doing an employer spotlight. They talked about all the opportunities. People came on the chat is, oh my God, I didn't know insurance company hire project managers. Of course they do. Agile. Scrum masters, they hire a whole bunch of them, right? So because it's an insurance company, I don't want to be a salesman. I don't want to work in insurance. But guess what? There are industries out there that has a place for you. But don't dismiss yourself from those industries just because you're not familiar with the layout or the structure of the organization, because there can be an opportunity for you to work within that industry doing exactly what you love to do, making a whole bunch of money. But because they have a little red umbrella as a symbol, you decided to stay away from them. So open your mindset, open your ways, the pathways to being able to achieve your goals. And instead of pivoting, like Adam said, stack your skills.
Great, thank you. So I think we have time for one last question that was just posted. It looks like this was for you, Adam. Basically, stair stepping would be similar to updating your skills with current trends in technology movement, like AI automation and implementation.
Yeah, Eric, thank you for the question. I was going to say, yeah, that that's a part of it is making sure that your skill set stays current with what are the trends in terms of technical skills. But also, I think a lot of the work is pointing towards those technical skills moving, I think, faster than any of us can keep up with. And so, one of the things employers actually end up looking for are some of the soft skills. So, for example, if you've been a technician most of your career, you are not going to be as well trained in the latest technology as somebody coming fresh out of a program. There's no way you're going to be able to, in your free time, keep up with somebody who just went to college for the latest and greatest technological implementation. So, one of the things you can do, though, is develop additional skills that somebody out of college doesn't have: the people management skills, the networking skills, learning how to budget along with a technical skill, right? And so when you think about moving up in your career and advancing in your career, they need people who know how to manage others, who have highly technical skills. You need to speak the technical language, but not necessarily have to be able to do it. I can manage people who can do technical things that I can't do. So you have to learn people management. You have to learn how does a budget operate. If you've never done budgeting, if you've just been a technician, learn how the budget works. Learn how the politics of your job work, right? Learn the structures of business as you go into from a technical field into, for example, future leadership roles. So keep adding skills that will get your next job. And I think that's what's important, because as you move forward, you're going to constantly be trying to evolve. So add things that you don't have yet, add things that are going to be necessary in a world where you imagine 15 years from now, nobody has technical skills because it's all done by the AI. What is your job? Your job is communicating. Your job is connecting people. Your job is people-based. So think about those things. Critical thinking. You have to be able to ask the correct questions of the AI. AI don't just do it on its own. Smart people ask it to do work. And if you're not a smart person who knows how to think and problem solve, you don't even ask the right question and you get a garbage output. Go try it anytime you want to. But that's kind of what I mean by that, is to really think about what additional skills are outside of what you currently do, to think about other roles that utilize your experience but do a new thing.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you so
great
much,
point. Great point.
both of you. Ken, did you have anything quickly to add to that, or?
Um, yeah, one last phrase. Your network will determine your net worth. You got to put yourself in the right circles. And you got to be very intentional about what you do, because, time is critical. That's your most valued commodity right now is time. Don't waste it.
Great. Well, thank you both so much. And I do want to mention before we end, just as a really great follow-up to today's session, we do have another VetNet scheduled for February 12th called Resume to Results, telling your career story with intentionality. So that would be a really great follow-up to today's VetNet. And Cassandra, I think, is going to post that link in the chat for you. And again, thank you so much, Ken and Adam. Can't thank you enough. You will all be receiving the recording later this afternoon. And thank you. Have a great rest of your day.